whatever you do, don't just buy some random kit that somebody made and is making money off of you. First of all, they tend to be really expensive for what's in them. It's often junk. And second of all, it's not for your specific situation. Like, all humans have blood, yes. So having something to deal with blood is probably a good idea. But as we've already talked about, you have your own special situation, your family, you have your own people and pets in your family, you're living in a certain location. So don't just go buy some generic kit that someone said. Now, that's better than nothing, but it's best to put together something that you personally are going to use and need. So instead of thinking about every single situation, think about specific situations for you. Now, the Red Cross has a list of emergency supplies that you should have depending on the different situation where you live. If you're in the United States, go to the Red Cross website for that. And I think in many parts of the world, there's something comparable. So find what's recommended for where you live. And then think about that in context of your own situation and what you'd need for staying home versus going someplace else, and what you should leave at home versus having your car. Or if you don't have a car, what you should have in a bag you can grab. Also, just in general, what you should have that you can grab. So this is kind of like a lot of big things to think about, but let's start first with just the simple idea of a first aid kit. So everyone knows we need to have a first aid kit, right? But what people don't think about is, what are we actually going to use it for? A lot of first aid kits have a really terrible pair of tweezers. Your fingers will work better. Spoons would work better. Don't just buy a first aid kit that has those. Get a pair of tweezers you already use and just get a second one. You put together your own kit. At home, we have a toolbox that we use. And then in the car, we have actually a smaller toolbox that we use. Each of my kids has one in their dance bag, in their orchestra bag, in their school backpack. I have one in my purse. And depending on each one, we have different stuff in it. But it's the same high quality we'd use the rest of the time, because if you need a first aid kit, you want it to be the same quality. Now, the one benefit I'd say is those little packets of ointment that you can get, because it's kind of inconvenient carrying around an entire tube. But our home first aid kits have the whole tubes of the medicines you might need, because we're going to use them. And the one for my son in his dance bag, he has the ointments that he needs for his feet or his friends might need. Band-Aids, oftentimes the Band-Aids in those first aid kits are not good quality. Also, remember the adhesive wears out. So use the same Band-Aids used in the rest of your house, and then rotate them, right? If after a while that adhesive is not going to be sticky anymore, so switch them out. Make sure you have different sizes for different size situations. And then depending on what you're doing in your life, you're going to need different things. I put together a comprehensive first aid kit for my kids' scout troop. They're a high adventure troop. They have 2 huge bags for their first aid kits, and they're very well organized, have everything they could possibly need. I should probably do a video series on that sometime. Maybe we'll do that in the future. If you're interested in the video series on first aid kits, put a note in the chat. I will consider it, because it's a really important topic. When you're doing your first aid kit, do a list from the Red Cross and then use that to make your own. And also things your family will need themselves. Like, we have different issues, right? We do different things. We have different medical conditions. We need our migraine medicine, because everyone in my family gets migraines. So medicine that keeps us from throwing up and migraine medicine is in every first aid kit, because we're going to need it. And there's other things that are personal to your situation, as far as your location, right? We don't have jellyfish where we live. We're really far from an ocean, but I hear that first aid kits near a coast have to have stuff for jellyfish. So depending on your situation, different things. Now I want to take that same idea and put it into the whole idea of evacuating or staying in your house. Obviously, we need food and water, right? But we need food people are going to eat. And a lot of those emergency packs, no one's going to eat that, because let's talk about reality here. We don't want to wait till someone is starving to death for them to actually decide to eat it. So instead, get things people will actually eat. What food do you normally eat? You normally feed your family that they normally like to have that would be useful in an emergency, because you probably already have options. You probably already have different kinds of food that you take on hikes, or food that you use when you're just you haven't gone to the grocery store in a while and you just need something in the house. Those kinds of foods are foods that you can use in an emergency too. So plan ahead by having a backstock of the foods you already eat, rather than some weird food that you're not going to eat. And if you don't have any foods you already eat that would work in an emergency, both an evacuation type of emergency and a stuck in the house with no power type emergency, now's the time to figure out what people are willing to eat, rather than get a bunch of stuff people hate. Water. Storing water is pretty straightforward and easy. Finding a place to put it is a little bit harder, and make sure everyone knows where you put it. and that has to be used too. So we actually have a rotating stock of water that we use for our humidifiers that is also our backstock of water, because that way we have humidifiers all over the house. We have jugs of water all over the house for the humidifiers. And then as we use them up, we get new ones. So that way it's a little bit wasteful because we spend like, I don't know, $5 a month on water, but that makes sure that we're rotating it. I guess water would still be fine 30 years later, but it's something that we like to keep up with. When you're thinking about other things you might need beyond first aid, food, and water, prescription medication. I just kind of mentioned that with migraine meds. But if you have a baby, you need diapering stuff, and that has to be switched out as your kiddo grows. You're going to want changes of clothes for everyone, especially if they're kids, because if someone has any like incontinence issues or things, you're going to need stuff for that, right? So you have to think in like so many dimensions. When you start with something simple and then you make it more complicated, what do your pets need? You need pet food, pet treats, pet toys, bully sticks, whatever it is they're going to need. Is there a special blanket, a special toy that you want to make sure to grab? Write a list so you have those things. Same with kids, if they have a special toy or something. In emergency, you want to have that list of just like a few things. Obviously, you won't necessarily have time to get it all, so don't make a list of 40 things, but like 5 things you could totally get. Next off, personal documents and things. Everyone knows my purse is always hanging in the same place, has my wallet in it, so I have my driver's license and all that. It's always there. And so everyone knows you just grab mom's purse and we'll have the first aid kit in my purse. We'll have 1 day's worth of every person's prescription medication in my purse. We have lotion, we have cough drops, we have all those kind of basic things moms always have. And I have my identification. I always have some cash, right? All these like little things we might need. All they have to do is grab my purse that I just kind of always have with me if I have my purse with me, because I'm one of those moms. I'm not cool. I'm prepared. So if you're not that way, that's fine. I also have my knitting in there because I might lose my mind, which is another thing is you'll want something to do, right? If you have kids, you might want puzzle books or toys, or if you have babies, you want baby things, whatever it is they're going to play with and have fun with. So regardless of the situation, you have all these things you have to think about, and you don't want to make it complicated. You don't want to make it wasteful, and you don't want to have it be something that has aged badly. Be thinking about all those things while you're putting together what you might need if you are having to evacuate, but also what you're going to need if you're going to stay home. Each type of thing that you're going to get, make sure it's something you actually need, you actually use, in the version you'd actually use, in the style and the quality you'd actually use, and that you know where it is and that it's up to date. So it's not expired, it's not nasty, it's not leaking, it's not, adhesives worn out, kids haven't outgrown it. There's a lot of pieces to this. And you don't want it to be something that's hard to keep up. If you make it really complicated, you won't be able to keep that up. So don't do that. What I like to do is have everything just be part of our regular lives. Because that way, if I always have our first aid kit be also what we get all the time, like from the time the kids were little, they knew anyone needs something, you can get the toolbox out and they're going to have what they need for, cuts and splinters and all that kind of stuff. We can also grab that in an emergency, and it's what we used all the time anyways. And so that way we're always keeping up with it. We're keeping it nice. Same in my purse. I'm constantly using the stuff in my purse. My son's dance bag, he shares with his friends all the time. So he goes through a lot of stuff. I keep him well stocked, and it makes sure it's always fresh. Make sure it's specific to your situation, always fresh, and not complicated to keep up. If you make this really complicated, that's not healthy. If you're going to be keeping that up, you don't have time to think about all that. Life is complicated enough. Make it as simple as possible. I like things that will still be good years from now. So our emergency kit still has like search and find pictures, because that was fine when my kids were little. And frankly, they're still fun for me. So we have those. We have a book of like Find the Cat. It's like 100 pages with every photo has a cat somewhere in it. And we all enjoy it. I have a few things like that were great when the kids were 4, and they're great when they're teenagers. So find things you don't have to switch out. Clothes, T-shirts that are too big will always fit. Not always, but for a long time. If you're someone who's going to have extra clothes. I don't have to worry about that anymore because I have teenagers. But when they were younger, I always kept clothes for me in the car and for the kids because things always went wrong. And even now, I always keep like winter coats in the car the entire winter. We have just old, ugly winter coats just in case, because we might leave the house in good weather and then there might be a blizzard. You never know. So remember, being prepared is personal. You do it for you and for your situation. And this is super important. Don't make it complicated. Don't freak yourself out. Don't think about every single situation, because here's the most important thing. You are resourceful and you are going to be able to figure this out, and you're not alone. Now, if you personally know of a situation you could be in, that, plan for it. But All those books we read as kids where kids get like abandoned alone in the middle of the wilderness don't usually happen. So you don't have to come up with everything you're going to need to survive in the wilderness for a month. All you need is what you personally need long enough to get to a shelter or whatever situation. You can count on other people. You've got this.